Alright, we're now about halfway done, and we're now in what I consider the main part of this area. Had we not wasted so much time in the foggy forest part, we'd already be done probably, because that part, the way I did it, takes pretty long. Normally, I reckon you just hug the right wall, not miss that one chest I missed, and then go to Vanguard, head to the middle for the last treasure and be done. And if you want to skip it, you just hug the left wall, as I already told you. But yeah, right here actually there is well, a way to a treasure that won't make you waste another fragrant branch of yore. Normally we'd come here from the other side, and we will, but we're not gonna use a fragrant branch here. It's complete and total waste. Because why use one if you can save one? So you probably noticed that I have repaired Gower's Ring of Protection, but it's not of much use here, so let's get rid of it and instead equip the Ring of Whispers. We'll be seeing exactly how useful that is to us a little bit later. For now though, all we're gonna hear is a little roaring occasionally when an enemy is around. It certainly does help you avoid running into traps, I can imagine, but I never really used it for that. So just now we picked up the Black Halberd. It is significant in that it's a returning weapon from the first game, and it was used by the Black Knights, which were enemies you would encounter every now and then. And they had a chance of dropping rather powerful weapons, like the Black Knight Halberd for instance, which happened to be a pretty good weapon for speedruns because it was possible to get it fairly early on, with a little bit of luck. But I'll be kind enough to post the description in the thread, so if you care a little bit about the lore behind the Black Knights, be sure to read the post. But more on that in the thread actually. For now we have, well, someone to unpetrify. It's an enemy of course, so we'll have to fight it. And actually, enemies in this area are resistant to magic. Normally this would do around 800 to 1000 damage roughly, but it does barely anything to them. So now we have to fight him with pure magic damage. I'm gonna be honest, I knew this beforehand, but I forgot. But thankfully, unless you suck, you can still manage. On your first playthrough, of course, you will probably be overwhelmed if you have pure magic damage here, because those guys don't exactly look like your typical magic resistance enemies. But thankfully, we have other weapons to fall back on. This key is pretty important. We're gonna see why later in this video too. For now, let's actually use a different weapon. We're gonna stick with greatswords. We're gonna use the Mastodon greatsword, plus 10. It is one of the best greatswords in the game, in my opinion. The ones I like better are the Claymore and the Black Knight greatsword, because those have thrusts. This one instead has an overhead swing as the heavy attack, which isn't bad either, but the thrust I think has more utility. You know, that guy actually noticed us, so let's see how well this weapon does against him. Yep, that's just so much better. Previously with a swing we did like 2-digit amounts, and this time we actually do like 400 damage. This is great. Those guys are also a little bit resistant to lightning, not much, but a little bit. Their biggest resistance is actually magic. Which is a little sad, because just as I decided to switch over to magic, I have to go through this area of course. Magic, of course, isn't going to be completely useless here, so we're gonna see some of that. Yeah, the best strategy here is to just actually turn around right away and jump over here, but first time around, of course, you're not gonna know that. You can get a treasure, and you will be able to snipe those guys if you don't run far away enough for them to actually retreat. This of course also gives you the chance to snipe that giant basilisk. I'm pretty sure you noticed, one way or another. Whoops, that wasn't exactly my plan, but it's not bad either, because we can just lure those guys down there and have a pretty easy time with them too. If we had magic to use against them for decent damage, those would be even easier. We could probably one-shot most normal enemies, unless they're magic resistant. And I'm kind of sad that those are that resistant to magic, because it kind of makes magic useless here. Most of the rest of the game is actually doable by builds using any kind of damage type. As far as I'm aware, it's only this area that really gimps a build that would use pure magic damage. But I may be wrong there, because I actually haven't played every possible build yet, so I would know. And in case you didn't notice, those guys are pretty easy to backstab. Like, even if you don't approach them from behind. You can pretty easily just dodge around them and just attack at the right moment. You'll backstab. And I don't think I explained this properly yet, but if you are behind an enemy and you try to backstab him, you can pretty easily fail that. Because first you will kind of hit him with the hilt of your sword or your fist or something, and then you will actually, once that has connected, do the actual backstab. Back to New Game. For this little path here, this is one of the few New Game parts we're gonna see here, because as I already said, we're gonna see a lot of New Game Plus footage this time around. And plenty of curse jars here. This place really is trying to curse us, or petrify us, and hey, look at that guy down there. Let's not go down there just yet, because first we need to take care of a crystal lizard here. This one's pretty easy to get even if you don't have any ranged attacks, because he can't really escape. He can hide in a corner and maybe your weapon will hit whatever and that'll be it, but most of the time you'll be able to get it fairly easily. And the Dark Scythe is a scythe enchanted with dark. Not some special weapon, I'm sorry. So yeah, let's do it. Those messages would probably inform us that he is a pretty nice guy. And this is actually what we bring the Ring of Whispers for, because if we try to talk to him without it, it won't work.
Human, are we? This is no place for you. Be gone. Are you not afraid of me? Humans rarely come here. Those who do turn back when they see me, or make an attempt on my life. But you are different. We once had a master. He created us long, long ago. But he was born with a fatal flaw. He resented those who had what he lacked and became fully mired in hatred. Eventually, he drove himself mad. It was at the peak of this madness that he conjured up we strange creatures. Our master was a tragically lonely soul. Eventually, his solitude eroded his very reason. In the end, he never understood what it was that he truly lacked. Nobody knows when we were born, or where our master has gone. The only ones who even speak a human tongue are myself and my better half. I wish to ask a favor of you. I want you to kill my betrothed. Once, I always felt her at my side. But as time went on, things went awry. She became violent, raging uncontrollably. Eventually, she came after me. We have been locked in combat ever since. we seem to be at a standstill. The wounds we exchange are never lethal. I was born of my master's madness. Perhaps this is some curse. I will be sure to assist you in return. The past is a distant fog. My name was Targ. That is all that I remember.
So, that master of his shows some pretty obvious parallels to Seath the Scaleless from the first game. Seath was a dragon without scales, he was born that way. And scales are actually the source of dragons' immortality for some reason. Eventually, Seath decided to help kill all the dragons, which proved that the dragons aren't really immortal. However, Seath was still obsessed with immortality and tried to become immortality. And in his research, which drove him insane by the way, he combined various living things, humans, animals and the like. Oh, down here's Vengal's place actually. And if we turn around, we can see that one petrified enemy we didn't unpetrify because we didn't have to. We just jumped down and grabbed the treasure. For now though, I think it's a good time to take care of that big basilisk. Those petrified people around him, by the way, I'm pretty sure are actually other players that got petrified in their own games. It's one of those neat online things that just kind of are there. Much like the ghosts we've seen aplenty so far that just walk around sometimes. Those are actually other players. Or the bloodstains, which show the final moments of other players in their games. And I have to say, I'm not 100% sure if those petrified people are actually other players, but they most likely are. They were in the first game, after all. And they're always random in this game. Or rather, they're other players, so yeah. If they aren't, they're random though. But yeah, this giant basilisk isn't exactly that difficult. It's safest to stay by his sides, because while he has attacks that actually defend his front and back, he does really have one that defends his side as well. The most dangerous thing he can do is to breathe his, well, basilisk breath, I guess, at you while he has you cornered, but that very rarely happens actually. He mostly does it to open up, but after that he kind of leaves it. I'm kind of surprised that this enemy didn't actually aggro during the fight, because usually it doesn't take much to make him come at you. And the actual reason for killing the basilisk is of course the petrified dragon bone you get, because it's a material that will help upgrade boss weapons. Of course, a Pharaoh's Lockstone isn't exactly too shabby either, but we got plenty of those by now. Now, in New Game, let's just skip the basilisk, because, well, we don't have to do it. Instead, let's just go right on. But you have to be very careful about the cursed jars here, because some of them are placed in pretty sneaky ways. And if you get cursed, you won't die, of course, but you will lose a bit of your maximum health until you actually use a human effigy again, or help someone in co-op, depending on what you like to do more. And usually, you heard it a couple times now, it also is a noise. But sometimes, like right now, we don't hear it for some reason. So you'll have to be aware, just look for the black fog. And yeah, of course, that ground just unceremoniously just crumbled away. Just because we stepped a little too close to it. Maybe this will happen again pretty soon, who knows? Because, you know, this game pretty often actually pulls the same trick twice. And if it doesn't, it sometimes kind of catches you off guard. And here is another petrified enemy. It's always a good idea to use a fragrant branch of yore here. We'll be seeing why once we see the treasure. And it's not because the treasure is exceptionally good. Yep, easy backstabs. For some reason I think that those enemies turn slower than most others, because other enemies aren't that easy to backstab. Yes, we get another fragrant branch of yore here, as well as the Lion Mage set, which is pretty good for magic builds. Every part of it increases the cast speed by a little bit. And look at that suspicious ground ahead of us. I'm sure nothing bad will happen. We could have dropped down the other hole too, but this is the only way to get up here.
Ah, look how far this undead has wandered. And a very fit undead you are. A bit too alive, but with a darkish shadow. Yet still unprepared for a deeper dark. And like every undead, you have no future. Oh my, don't mind me. I'm just talking amongst myself. But if you find a need for a truer dark, then meet again. We shall. The dark is still nascent within you. May the dark shine your way.
Yeah, we're gonna meet that guy again. But not very soon. And here we actually get Homing Soul Mass, a spell that we've been using in this very video. Well, actually we've been using Crystal Homing Soul Mass, and if we went out there, we'd be back to the guy where we got the fan key. But yeah, Homing Soul Mass is a pretty cool spell. It actually produces up to 5 orbs that will follow us, and they will actually attack enemies on their own. The more intelligence you have, the more orbs you will have. And it's a pretty bad spot to fight basilisks, to be honest, but still, they're not much of a problem because even when they breathe, they're fairly easy to avoid. You just have to pay attention to your petrify buildup, because if you get petrified, you actually do die immediately, opposed to curse. And hey, the fan key, and oh, this looks like an enemy from the first game.
Thank you for helping me. I am Ornifex. I owe you some form of thanks, but have nothing for you at the moment. If it would not trouble you, could you visit my abode just down the way? Thank you, kind traveler. I believe that I can be of assistance if you would visit me at my home.
So yeah, Ornifex is one of 2 characters who will actually create boss weapons for us. But even if you don't want to use any of them, there's an Estus Flask shot here, so getting the fan key is a pretty good idea. And now we're back out. In New Game, of course, we didn't go down there, so we missed out on the Estus Flask shard, but it's not a big deal. Going through the game without the maximum amount of Estus Flasks isn't too difficult. There's a total of 12, and in the first game, if you remember, you only had 5 at most times. 10 if you actually kindled the bonfire, but that's something people mostly do in the first playthrough, really. As a little more experienced player, I can just skip some of them, no worries. And ho ho ho, Fog Gate and Summon Signs. And yeah, this is kinda cool. Let's go with that. So seeing as we're gonna summon Tark here, this is probably gonna be his, well, his wife in there. So let's go and say hi to her. She seems rather nice so far. But, well, knowing Tark, there's probably more to her. Yeah. She, as well, is very resistant to magic, so Using magic in this area, not a good idea. Really not a good idea. And Nachka herself isn't too difficult a boss. She's in fact pretty easy if you just kite her and bait her attacks. Eventually she will slam down her tails, they will be stuck in the ground, and you can actually attack them with impunity. She won't do anything until she withdraws them again. Of course, having lightning spears, being able to attack from a range is a pretty good idea as well. And since we have Tark to distract her, that's not a problem either. You probably noticed that that tail sweep just you know, cut down a tree. And there is a tree in the corner of this room. We won't see it cut down in this game here, sadly. The item that's hanging on it is actually a flame butterfly, which does nothing but light your torch wherever you are. So Nachka just dove into the ground and now she's doing it again. The safest way to deal with this attack is to just stand there on this little piece of, well, crumbled wall, because she won't be able to surface there, so you're completely safe. You have to be aware that Nachka can also do magic attacks, and they can be difficult to dodge at times. The timing's kind of odd, I found. But I kind of feel bad, I essentially cheated the fight with Tark. Still, there isn't much to her, really. Aside from the fact that she can do magic attacks that are kind of hard to dodge, it's not too difficult. I'll also include the fight of New Game Plus, though, in a separate video just for you to watch if you care. But yeah, this is the Shaded Woods, or rather this has been the Shaded Woods. We're now moving on to a different area. An area that I always forget it exists. It's quite forgettable, I'm sad to say. The Doors of Pharaohs. Unless you join a particular covenant, you probably won't be staying in this area much. We'll be learning a little more about that though as we go, because for now, we're just gonna walk to the next bonfire and then call it a day. And the Mastodon Halberd we got here is actually a very good halberd. It's one of the strongest weapons in the game, by the way. And no, there, bonfire. So, as always, stick around for the boss weapon if you care. Boss weapon? I don't see a boss weapon. This is just the same stuff we've been using all this time, and it's not the boss weapon. This shield isn't either, and yeah, I'm gonna stop fooling you. What we get for giving her soul to Straight is actually magic. It's called Soul Shower, and it does that. I reckon it's a decent spell if you have to deal with large enemies or large groups of enemies, but against single targets it's not very useful. So there's no upgrading spell, so this is basically the spell at its full potential. Not very good, as you can see. The description of her soul, by the way, goes as follows. Soul of the Scorpion is Nachka. Nachka was born of the misdeeds of an ancient being, a frail soul from the beginning that soon succumbed to madness. Yeah, that's probably Zeeth. But yeah, anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I do hope, of course, as well to see you again next time.